Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Thursday, March 14th. This is episode 84. Obviously, Chuck and Dawn have the day off. This room is still very cold, but got a little hotter by and a little taller when it comes to hair. With Anthony Totri filling in. He is the PHNX host for the Sun Devils podcast out in Phoenix, Arizona. He and I went to school together. Yeah. Anthony, what's up, man?
Pleasure to be here, man. We talk sports all the time, off camera, away from the mics. Glad we could finally sit behind the mics together and do it, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Basically, all we talk about is that and how short Anthony is.
There it is. There it is.
There'll be a lot of those jokes on here today. So we got a lot going on. Anthony, very nice to join us today, giving Don and Chuck a little bit of a break. But we got a lot of NFL free agency to get to. We're not going to talk about Anthony being a Charger fan because that's just sad for everybody.
It is.
We also are going to talk a lot of name, image, and likeness going on since Nick Saban wanted to go off with some senators at a roundtable in Capitol Hill this week. Because you're in it pretty much every single day with the Sun Devils.
Absolutely.
And we deal with it here with UTSA as well. So talk about that a little bit. But in case you don't know, we start the podcast every day with what the number episode reminds us of in terms of sports.
Okay.
So 84, instantly, I think of Randy Moss.
I mean, all-time great. One of top 3 wide receivers of all time?
Yeah, I mean, every time I think of Randy in a Minnesota uniform, I just think 3 receptions, 127 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that one game back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So
greatest screenshot of all time.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
It's incredible.
But Shannon Sharp also making the rounds. I mean, Denver Bronco, great.
There you go.
Denver Bronco, great. Obviously, Club Shay Shay doing his thing nowadays. So
absolutely.
Roddy White, Antonio Brown, also making the list just because I think that was our generation of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Roddy White, the tail end of his career with the Falcons and Matt Ryan, and then obviously and Antonio Brown is such a polarizing figure. Like you say the number 84 and you think sports, I feel like Antonio Brown has to be a part of that conversation.
Mr. CTE himself, as he likes to dub himself.
It's just crazy. It's crazy that
why would you want that?
I don't know. I don't know why he's claimed that name for himself, but
I mean, good for him. Good for him.
I guess.
Meanwhile, since we are streaming, I believe Bob live on YouTube, Cyber Bob over here is going to give us whatever our if anybody has any questions or anything. If you want to know what product Anthony uses in his hair that gets it that tall, just let us know. We can answer any questions that come our way. But continuing on. Patrick Creighton was a number was a guy that I saw that brings back memories of playing Madden back in like the 2010s.
Yeah, that's insane. I haven't heard that name in years.
Yeah, I think he was a Cowboy from 08 to 12 or something like that, 04 to 10, something like that. 6 year stretch in there. Prince Fielder also wore 84 when he played for the Rangers. So important to us a little bit here. And then I saw Dylan Cease because Dylan Cease was in the news recently, having been traded to the Padres.
Let's go.
From the White Sox.
Let's go.
Big San Diego guy over here. That's why you're a Charger fan?
All the way.
Does that mean you're a Clipper fan too?
The San Diego Clippers, yeah.
Yeah, but not the Los Angeles Clippers?
No, not the Los Angeles Clippers.
So basically not a Clipper fan because they moved away from San Diego 15 years before you were born.
Yeah, but hey, the G League team has returned. The San Diego Clippers G League team has returned. So we finally got a basketball team back in San Diego.
All right, that's fair. I also have another note about the Clippers happening in 1984. They moved away from San Diego in 1984. So
I feel like you've done this on purpose. You've built this up entirably just to poke fun at the Chargers.
It really doesn't
the city
sound
of San Diego.
Doesn't sound like something I would do.
Oh yes, of course.
I'm above board, my friend. I would never take those cheap shots. In 1984, the Raiders beat the Redskins 38-9 in Super Bowl. I think it was. I don't know. I'm not going to do the math. I think it was 22. Super Bowl MVP was Marcus Allen. League MVP Dan Marino. That's the year he set all of the records. I think he threw for 5,084 yards that year. 48 touchdowns. The record held until Tom Brady beat it in 2007. Then later beat by Peyton Manning in 2013. Obviously, got to throw a Bronco shot in there. Donald Sterling moved the Clippers from San Diego to Los Angeles. Georgetown beat Houston in the 84 national championship game. Don't usually throw the NCAA in there, but since it is tournament time, we have madness all around us.
Absolutely.
Figured we'd throw that in there as well. Celtics beat the Lakers 4-3 in the NBA. And another thing I think of when it comes to 1984 is that was the year. Wow. MJ, Hakeem, John Stockton and Charles Barkley all got drafted.
What a class.
With Sam Bowie right in the middle of Hakeem and Michael Jordan. So I don't know how you don't think, if you like basketball, I don't know how you don't think of 1984 when you think of the number 84.
Wow. I didn't realize that class was what it was.
Well, have you seen the movie Air?
I have not seen the movie Air.
You got to get off your ass here, man.
I know. I
Well,
need to
actually,
be better.
get on your ass and watch the movie.
There you go.
And then lastly, I got Tigers beat the Padres in the World Series. I did not mean to
another shot at San Diego. That's crazy.
I actually didn't mean to do that. It's just that happened in 1984.
Yeah,
I had to inform everybody.
Ironic enough. Yeah.
All right. So let's get to NFL free agency. So a lot of stuff's been going on. Teams haven't made any moves. Teams have made a lot of moves. What was the most impactful that you've seen so far? I think we had a lot of stuff go down on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So
as soon as tampering period started opening. So most impactful.
I
think the most impactful right off the bat is Kirk Cousins.
New Matt Ryan.
Exactly. The newer aged version of Matt Ryan. Kirk Cousins obviously leaving Minnesota, going to the Falcons, that 4-year deal. I mean, anytime you can get yourself a starting quarterback that's, I would say, probably a top 15 guy in the league. For an Atlanta organization that just traded Desmond Ridder this morning. So I think that's probably the most impactful. But like you said, you could talk Derrick Henry, you could talk some of those other moves that immediate Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Like there's so many flashy ones.
It has to be Kirk.
Yeah.
You can just tell by the Super Bowl odds. They went from, I think it was like 50-1 to 30-1 with Kirk, with the addition of Kirk Cousins. When you substitute in either Kirk Cousins for Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not really competition there.
No.
Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback, even coming off an Achilles, even 36 years old. He is going to make that team really good as opposed to what they had before. And you have all the skill positions that you have there with Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And now they just traded for Rondale Moore today. Yeah. So Desmond Ridder's gone. The guy that they anointed as their savior last year already thrown onto the trash heap.
Yeah.
You just have so much there that if anyone can get the most out of him, Kirk can get them the ball, and that's really all they need.
Yeah. No, and I mean, look, you always expected Atlanta was probably going to make a move, whether that be in the draft, whether that be in free agency. Knew they wanted to pursue a guy like Kirk, who had the track record of a guy that can be successful in this league. And look, anytime you get a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, these guys usually want to associate themselves with a brand new quarterback. And that's exactly what you've got with Raheem Morris, the former Rams defensive coordinator.
No more Arthur Smith in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Atlanta fans couldn't wait to get him out of town.
So sadly, I think another one of the most impactful moves, maybe top 3, is going to revolve another quarterback, and it's Russ.
Yeah.
I think Russ going to the Steelers is highly underrated. They're paying him $1.2 million. He's a low-risk, high-reward starter that can be better than Kenny Pickett, and Mason Rudolph, who's now in the Titans, who basically got them to 9-8 last year without a quarterback. Kenny Pickett has been horrible.
Yeah. Not only has Kenny Pickett not been a great quarterback, but a move that you bring in a guy like Russ, who you obviously know what he means to the game. You know what the game means to him. I think he fits with Mike Tomlin and everything that he's done over several years, obviously, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think a part of this move that people aren't necessarily talking about, everybody wants to talk about the money and what kind of went down with Denver and the team-friendly deal he took with Pittsburgh.
We don't have to talk about that.
But it's going to, in my mind, you are going to learn a lot more about Kenny Pickett over the next handful of months, right?
Yeah,
whether he is that guy or not.
Yeah, and you're also going to learn what kind of guy Russ is. Russ has taken a lot of heat, and I've given him a lot of heat, not just from me, but from everybody. Literally across America has crapped on Russ at some point over the last 2 years, and so now him, Sierra, they're going to have to take a little humble pie and go into a city that does not take crap.
Absolutely.
In Pittsburgh.
They're winners.
Yeah, they're winners, and they're going to let you know if they don't like you. They booed half their team off the field half of the games this season.
Yeah.
They pretty much solely got Matt Canada fired this year because their offense was that bad. Mike Tomlin doesn't like making moves in the middle of the season, but had to be done because that's what the fans wanted and that's what needed to happen. So they'll let you know more than Broncos fans will, and Broncos fans will love you until we don't love you anymore. Yeah. But Steelers fans come in not loving you. You have to make them love you.
Absolutely. So that's the best part, though, about sports and those types of franchises and those fan bases. Like, you got that. You got Philly. You've got New York. Like, there are just a handful of fan bases around the nation where you have to earn their respect. versus, like you said, with Denver and some of the other cities where it's just like, you're on our team, you're our guy now.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that surprised a lot of people this offseason or this free agency period so far is the lack of moves by certain teams.
Yeah.
One of them being the Dallas Cowboys, who has lost a lot of guys to their former defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, and have not really signed anybody. They signed Eric Kendricks to fill in for Leighton Vander Esch. Leighton Vander Esch expected now to retire because of his neck injuries, which really sucks for the Cowboys and sucks for him. I mean, he was a really good player coming out of Boise State, but his career is going to end a little bit too soon. But you look at this and you're just like, do something. Yeah. Like, fans are looking at the Cowboys like, can you just do something?
Yeah. I think the issue and it's getting kind of, I don't want to say blown out of proportion, but because so many people, we just talked about it, right? The fan base in and of itself, Dallas, they love you, they hate you. Like, you have to earn that kind of respect in Dallas. But you look at all the other teams in that division. What have they done? Washington has added several pieces. They've got themselves a new coach. I know the Giants obviously lost Saquon, but on the defensive side of the ball, they vastly improved with Brian Burns and a couple of the other moves. And then you look at Philly, and they stole Saquon Barkley right under the Giants' noses. So everybody has seemingly got better. So I think that's why the whole issue with Dallas not necessarily doing anything is kind of getting the headlines that it is.
It's definitely the impetus to all the frustration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you look at all the teams, you just said it, you look at all the teams in the division, they're all doing something to try and get better. And then you look at the Cowboys and Stephen Jones, the owner's son, the GM, the head of football operations in Dallas, he comes out today and he's like, we're working on our deal, but you see our cap space. This is why we can't make these moves. And then I think he said,
not an excuse.
It's not, because you can restructure this stuff and you can get your deals done if you want. They've said for a long time that, like, Dak's contract will not hinder us from making moves. Well,
prove it.
Yeah, it's showing that it kind of is.
Yeah.
And not that Dallas always comes out and makes a splash in free agency, because they hardly ever do. But you're not even keeping the guys that you do have. So you're kind of, I don't know if you're trying to trim the fat or if it's a change in philosophy with a new defensive coordinator and Mike Zimmer and with all their coaches on 1-year deals. But you have to think, like, is it free agents not wanting to come here that they've offered? Are they lowballing a lot of people? Or, like, what is going on there? Because they don't even have a running back on the roster right now besides Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, and again, it shouldn't hinder you necessarily from making moves depending on your cap space and what it is. I mean, we obviously joke about the Chargers, but the Chargers had one of the worst cap situations leading up to yesterday, the start of the league year, and restructured 2 deals with Bosa and Khalil Mack, obviously released Mike Williams, and they still made deals to try and improve positions of need. I think for Dallas, the only, I guess, excuse that you could make, or the only reasoning behind it, is, in a few years, they're going to have to pay some people. CeeDee Lamb is going to get himself a contract. Michael Parsons is going to get himself a contract. Stephon Diggs' brother is going to get himself a contract.
Trayvon already did, yeah.
Like, there are so many talented players on Dallas that are going to get paid.
So I've made this point with Chuck and Don, and I'm curious as to if you agree with me or not. I think that out of Dak, CD, and Micah, the one that's most replaceable that you don't need to sign is CD.
That you don't need to re-sign?
That like, if you had to put one on the chopping block, it would be CD.
Between Dak, CD, and
Micah and CD. And I say that because
I disagree.
Okay. That's a good thing. Good thing we're on a podcast and we can actually have this conversation. I say that because quarterbacks are the hardest thing to find.
Yeah.
Through all the crap we give Dak, he was still second in the MVP voting last year. He had a really good year. He's expensive, but when you get a top 12, and I'll just call it 12 to be safe, I think he's top 10, but it's not the time or place for that conversation. We can do that when we're deeper into the offseason.
There you go.
I think that Dak is a top 12 quarterback, and it's harder to find than it is a top receiver. You look at the draft this year, and you see Romeo Dunze, you see Marvin Harrison Jr., you see Malik Neighbors, you see all those guys that you can get in the draft. Even later on in the draft, there's guys in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round that you can get and replace CeeDee Lamb. I'm not saying they're going to be as good as CeeDee Lamb, because we saw how trying to replace a receiver worked with the Titans last year, 2 years ago, drafting Treylon Burks and trading away AJ Brown. But CD is easier to replace than Dak. And as far as Amber Alert going off, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, everyone got it. And as far as Micah goes, it's even harder to find a good pass rusher.
No, yeah. I mean, look, I agree with you. For me, I would actually put Dak Prescott at the bottom of that list.
Really?
I would much rather sign CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons than Dak. But I know what Dak did this past season, but I don't think he's good enough to take Dallas to a Super Bowl, let alone win one. And again, for me, you just look at all of the Super Bowl winners over the last 5 seasons. How many quarterbacks are there? We're talking about Patrick Mahomes. We're talking about Matt Stafford,
Tom Brady,
and Tom Brady. That's it, right? That's all we're talking.
Yeah,
3 Hall of Famers easily. Dak Prescott, in my mind, is not a Hall of Fame quarterback, and at this point in the NFL, with the way that the offense is run, with the offensive minds that you have at head coach and offensive coordinator, it takes a Hall of Fame level quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And right now, Dak Prescott is not a Hall of Fame level quarterback.
Yeah, but you see that you can do it without receivers. If you look at the Chiefs.
You can, but again, Dak Prescott is not Pat Mahomes.
That's fair.
So, and I think realistically,
as much as I wish he was.
There's realistically I would say probably 5 quarterbacks in the league that you could point to right now where I would be like, this is a guy that can go win a Super Bowl right now. And Joe Burrow is one of those guys.
Jarrett Stidham.
Absolutely. Stidham is one of those guys. Pat Mahomes, and realistically, again,
don't say Justin Herbert.
I think he's got the talent. I don't think he's got the weapons around him to do it. I think realistically, again, there's not a whole lot of guys that you can be like, this is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and Dak Prescott is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's not even a playoff winning quarterback.
But what do you do? That's the thing. That's the thing with the Cowboys. And I know I'm in it every day. You're not, obviously, because you're doing it in Phoenix and stuff. So you deal more with the Cardinals and whatnot. But
yeah,
still, it's like, you don't have any other options.
No, you have to.
You have to re-sign him for another 3 or 4 years at $60 million a year.
Yeah.
He has you bent over a barrel, essentially, in terms of his leverage. You can't tag him next year. You can't trade him without him agreeing to it. You can't do anything with him. So you're stuck with him. At this point, you're stuck with him.
How long is his contract still?
He's 1 year left.
He's got 1 year. So next year's a proven year.
Yeah. So that's the option here.
Well, this is what I would say is if he doesn't win a playoff game next year, he's gone. He's gone. You
start rebuilding then?
You go with Trey Lance and you see what you can go from there.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's what you have to do, because how many times are we going to continue to do the same? Oh, we're going to be having a phenomenal regular season. It's going to be us and the Eagles in the race for the NFC East. And then we're eventually going to get to a point where we host a wild card game and Jordan Love takes our lunch money. Like,
it took a lot more than lunch money.
Like it's how many times are we going to repeat this same like playoff mess? Because the year before that,
welcome to Texas.
I mean, look, I know a little bit something about playoff fumbles. Okay,
30-3.
Yeah, what is 27-0?
Yeah, whatever.
Jacksonville. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so getting back to free agency a little bit, we got off on a little bit of a tangent that I didn't mean to, but it's fine. Who's disappointed you the most outside of the Cowboys?
Ooh, who was disappointed me the most?
Who's disappointed? Give me one team that's disappointed you the most, and another team that you think has improved the most outside of the Kirk move.
A team that I think improved the most would probably be Houston. I think right off the bat, you look at all of the moves that they made inside the box, obviously at linebacker, the defensive line. I know they kind of overpaid.
Hunter,
They kind of overpaid for Daniil Hunter, but still, Danico Autry, some of those guys, and then obviously they got a boost at running back with Joe Mixon, who I think is still a very talented running back. So I think they got better now. They had the cap space to do it. A team that had cap space, and I think for me has gotten so much worse, like absolutely disappointed me, has been the Tennessee Titans. It's the moves that they've made have really baffled me, all the way from Kenneth Murray at linebacker to Tony Pollard. Like, some of the moves, along with allowing a lot of their offensive line to bounce, has just been a giant head scratcher.
That's interesting because they're one of the teams that's been the most active in free agency. They signed Lloyd Cushenberry at center. They signed Calvin Ridley, at receiver.
It just didn't make, can we real quick, can we talk about that? Because that doesn't make any sense. We are going to give Calvin Ridley $90-something million over a 4-year period, mind you, who's had off the field issues with sports gambling and is an aging wide receiver. But when AJ Brown, a top 5 wide receiver entering his prime, said, hey, 4 years, $100 million, said, nah, too expensive for our blood. Instead, we're going to go sign Calvin Ridley. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And then trade for DeAndre Hopkins as well, who is an aging receiver.
Like, what are we doing? Doesn't make any sense what Tennessee is doing.
I mean, I don't get what they're doing. I think someone who has improved the most might be the Ravens.
I mean, yeah.
You add Derrick Henry to that team. How do you stop them? There's no stopping that running game now.
I mean, you hope for the best.
You put you just run triple option. You put Keaton Mitchell or Keaton Mitchell in the backfield, and then you fake the zone read, and then you have to choose between Lamar and Keaton Mitchell if he's not going to hand it off to Derrick Henry. Like, how do you stop it? Or you have Zay Flowers running the go.
Yeah,
it's just speed on speed on speed, and then you just got the thunder right behind you in Derrick Henry. So I just don't understand.
I mean, it was entering, or I guess closing out last season, and for several years, Baltimore has been the best running team in the league, right? It's testament to what John Harbaugh loves to do.
And they'll continue to be.
Yeah, and absolutely. They've only gotten better. I know it was only a 2-year deal, but if you're John Harbaugh, if you're Ravens fans, you're like, okay, this next season, it really is Super Bowl or bust for us because Derrick Henry's getting older. You're spending money on running backs. Zay Flowers, he's going to be up for a contract here a couple seasons. This team is Super Bowl or bust, and they have to get over the hump with the Kansas City Chiefs.
As far as the Texans go, I think that you're right on the money.
Yeah.
The Texans might be the team that surprises us the most in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I think they might own the AFC South for the next 5 years. And I think next year they have the potential to be a top 3 seed in the NFL or in the AFC. I mean, they are so fundamentally strong and good. Their offensive line is good with Tunsil and Titus up front.
They're America's team.
I'm
sorry. I don't want to say it to all the Cowboys fans out there, but realistically, people love DeMeco Ryans.
They do.
They love CJ Stroud.
They do.
They loved what they did in the playoffs. Like, it's a team that everybody kind of wants to see win.
Yeah, you signed Joe Mixon now. You have such young weapons in the home ground guy with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, and you have all of these weapons, and then your defense, all they need is a couple of pieces. You signed Danielle Hunter to go opposite Will Anderson. Like, you have all of these pieces. I think the AFC South is the Texans for the taking.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it hasn't been theirs for the taking in a while now. In that division, it felt for a while that Jacksonville was maybe going to start to get a little bit better, but Jacksonville they've made some moves that I question as well. You look at the Tennessee Titans, we already talked about them. And then the Indianapolis Colts, I still think that Anthony Richardson is a little bit of a question mark just to see how he returns. They obviously, re-signed Michael Pittman, and they've made some moves this offseason, but I think you're absolutely right. I think Houston is going to own that division, not just next season, but for years to come.
Yeah, but they got rid of Gardner Minshew, the old hairy one, so they're going to go downhill. Let's get to some name, image, and likeness stuff here. So earlier this week, Nick Saban spoke at a roundtable discussion with a handful of U.S. senators on Capitol Hill about the current state of college athletics, and this was his quote, which kind of got everyone fired up. He said, all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. It was always about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. That's the reason that I always like college athletics more than the NFL, is because you had the opportunity to develop young people.
Yeah.
I think you see that, and you see Nick Saban saying this, and it's like, okay, I get his point.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at how much money he made in his career, and I think people will just look at the dollar figure that he made in his career, because he does have a point.
Yeah.
The college landscape is completely changed. It's completely different. There's nothing that's the same anymore than it was 5 years ago. And as someone who sees this on a daily occurrence with ASU, what do you think of what he said?
It's funny because the day he said this, we actually talked about it on our podcast. And I know there's a lot of people that just didn't like the take at all. Like you said, they're kind of pointing to the dollar amount that Nick Saban made throughout his career, but I would say he's not wrong in a certain way. Again, there is truth to what he's saying in terms of a lot of it has to do with money, and not necessarily like disagreeing in terms of saying that players should get paid. I'm all for NIL. I'm all for players getting a piece of the pie. But in terms of development, it really is for some of these kids, again, just from speaking with them and speaking to coaches and understanding what these guys have to do, it really is college football free agency, college basketball free agency. And there isn't a desire to go out there and be a developed player, right? So I think that's what he's saying in terms of Alabama and Georgia. You look at the way that they've done it for so long. It was, we're going to go get blue chip 4-star, 5-star kids. They're going to sit, unless they are wickedly talented, they're going to sit on the bench for 2-3 seasons. When they're a junior and a senior, they've been in the system now for 2-3 years. They've developed, they understand what they're doing. And then that's why Alabama, Georgia, for years on end, you always see when we get to the NFL draft, how many first round, second round picks come
Right.
out of Alabama and Georgia. It's because they've been groomed and developed to go out there and be stars. They understand the game, as opposed to, hey, this guy over here, he's offering me $300,000, but this school here, they're offering me $700,000. So I'm going to go there regardless because I can play immediately and I'm getting paid.
I think that people used to like college football so much more because it meant more to the kids.
Yeah.
And because young men were there becoming young men. Like they were there to get an education, they were there to play football, and they were there to develop as people first.
Yeah.
And now it's the first question that a lot of these coaches will say that they get asked by recruits is, how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet their liking, then they don't take that school's offer and they go to a different school. And instead of looking at like, how can I develop as a human being for 4 or 5 years or however long this is? They don't look at it like that anymore. They don't care what the coach can do for them in terms of off the field. It's all in terms of money and on the field. It's the wild, wild west right now.
It is. It is.
And you can't build a sustainable college model like this now, because guess what? In a couple of years, the donors are going to run out. Like it's there's no owners of these franchises. It's not like they have a cap or anything like that. You're paying Caleb Williams $12 million or $8 million or whatever the hell he's getting paid. Arch Manning right now is being paid millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And he wants to stay at Texas. Guess what? It's because he's making the most money at Texas.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the Wild West right now and I get what he's saying, but you need to ring it in. And I agree with him. You need to ring it in at some point.
Yeah, there needs to be some set out rules here. Like, again, I am all for players getting paid and a piece of the pie, but right now it is the Wild West, and it doesn't help that the transfer portal, the rules have changed just about every single year with the portal on top of NIL happening. So it quite literally is free agency for a lot of these guys. I heard an interesting take that I'd love to get your 2 cents on in terms of how you could potentially fix NIL in college football specifically, right? Where you're still allowed a singular transfer, but the NIL money that you earn throughout a career in college is set in kind of like a trust that you don't get until you either go pro or you go to the draft. If you transfer more than one time
or until you graduate,
that money is no longer yours. You don't get to see the actual NIL money. So there is incentive to actually go out, play with a program for the entirety of a career, or you get the one transfer.
Where's the money go? Back into the pot?
Pretty much, yeah.
So you're essentially
it's not a waste of the money.
So you're essentially signing a contract.
Pretty much. Which again, we're at free agency at this point.
I was going to suggest that. I think that's the right way to do it. Chip Kelly had a great take on this.
Oh, yeah, that was phenomenal.
Chip Kelly had a great take on this. Like he had obviously thought about this every day for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So his take was great. I think you need to sign 2 to 3 year deals with this stuff, because then you're not just helping the school, and it's sign 2 to 3 year deals with money. It doesn't matter. The money itself doesn't really matter, but it's the commitment to the school, the commitment to yourself, the commitment to the coaches. And yes, I understand. Don't bother me with the argument coaches leave all the time. I get that.
Yeah.
Coach, there's no loyalty in college football, but it's loyalty from the children, from the kids to their school, to their program, to their teammates. I understand coaches leave. Like, Kalen DeBoer said that he was going to be at Washington. Guess what? He's not anymore.
Yeah, Jed Fish said the same thing at the University of Arizona.
Yeah, they're not anymore.
No.
So I get it. The contract's only as good as the paper it's written on sometimes.
Absolutely.
But there needs to be some sort of system. And I'm not smart enough to think of the system. I just say that there's a problem. I can't point out how to fix the issue.
But it's not just you. Nobody can.
Yeah.
Right. How many seasons already have we done this, and it feels like it's getting worse? Right. Like I can quite literally point to. I mean, transitioning from college football to basketball for a second, there's a player at the University of Arizona that makes $1 million. That's ridiculous. There's a player on the University of Washington basketball team who makes $700,000. Like for me, who covers Arizona State, there isn't that level of money to be passed around at Arizona State University. Like certain teams and certain programs are playing in different sandboxes, and you want to talk about rules, you want to talk about, the integrity of the game. Like right now, it's going to the highest bidder. That's what it is, and there needs to be some sort of pullback here to get things to where they need to be. Now, I do think the expansion of the college football playoff, getting back to college football, is going to help that out a little bit, just because you're always going to have your Bamas, you're always going to have your Ohio States, but now you get, okay, an 11 seed, a 12 seed. Yeah, they may get absolutely dominated by an Ohio State, but donors see their team now, a team that was never going to make a college football playoff in a 4-team era. Now it's like, oh, wait, maybe we are just a little bit of ways away from actually competing with a Georgia or Ohio State.
Yeah, and I don't want to crap all over it because there are some good things that have happened. Kids are staying in college more or longer than they used to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of NIL, because they actually have money to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that all this happened was because the powers that be in college athletics wouldn't let kids have a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, it was that bad where you couldn't have peanut butter on a bagel, but you could have butter on a bagel and somebody could pay for it. It was the rules were so convoluted that they needed, if they gave an inch, it wouldn't have gone a mile.
Yeah, but let's be real. You weren't allowed to have a sandwich, but everybody was still having sandwiches.
Just ask Reggie.
Yeah. It was all just under the table.
Yeah, but now everything's come out in the light of day, and it's gone 150 degrees in the other direction.
Yeah,
like it's gotten so much worse.
Yeah,
and it's made the game worse. It's made the product worse, in my opinion. Even though there are new opportunities for kids, and that's what's great. It's the amount of opportunities, I guess. Seeing is that you don't have to see out your commitment.
Yeah,
you don't have to see through a commitment.
It's weird, dude. These kids have NIL agents. We have kids at Arizona State that, and right, you're supposed to go through public relations, set up interviews, that type of stuff. And I've had NIL agents reach out and be like, hey, can we get this person on the podcast, blah, 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 blah. And we get them on the podcast, and I get an email from somebody in public relations being like, hey, you know the rules, you know this. I'm like, we didn't go seek this out. Yeah. Like, this is a whole nother position now that exists that makes our life a little bit different, makes public relations life a little bit more different, makes the kids' life, the parents' life, it makes everybody's life a little bit more challenging and unique.
Yeah, and what also sucks about this is you're going to see coaches like Nick Saban go out. The Jay Wright.
Yeah.
He left Villanova at the peak of his power at Villanova because of this. Like, you're going to see coaches, probably Tom Izzo's of the world, are going to be retiring. Mike Krzyzewski has never said this, but I will go to my deathbed saying that the reason he left college basketball when he did is because of this.
Yeah.
You're getting these older coaches who may have abused the system at one point, getting the kids and maybe hoarding blue chip prospects that are now like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not the game that I used to know and love.
Not just that, but something that we talk about just about daily on our podcast, right? Obviously, Arizona State, one of the youngest coaches in college football with Kenny Dillingham, is Kenny Dillingham, the energy, the passion, the understanding of the social media aspect, the business side of things. And the fact of the matter is, a college football coach right now, I would argue, is probably the toughest job to have in college sports, simply because you are not just a coach. You are a teacher, you're a recruiter, you are an agent, you're a GM. Like, at the end of the season, you got a list of your best players, and you got the money over here that you're allowed to spend in your collective, and boom, 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 boom. We got to find a way to make it work. If you're low enough on that list, you're going to be hitting the portal. Like, you have to retain kids. You're texting kids. Like, it is a year-round job to be a college football coach.
You're consistently recruiting now. Recruiting never stops, and you never had to keep recruiting your own kids.
Yeah, you got to retain these kids.
Now you have to recruit your own kids even when you already have them.
Yeah.
Coach Traylor here at UTSA says that every single time we talk to him, it's like, what were you doing yesterday? I was talking to my players about who wants to leave and who wants to stay.
Yeah.
He's trying to retain everybody, because you can't even have a consistent program if all of your players leave and you have to turn over the program every year and a half.
Yeah, you're never going to have success.
Exactly. And so the coaches that do have sustained success right now, like, hats off to them, because it's amazing that kind of feat. Mm-hmm. So that's our NIL discussion. I realize now that I never really introduced Anthony at the beginning of this. I just said that this is Anthony Totri. So I might as well just say now how we know each other. We went to ASU together, and I hated him at first.
We did, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't your biggest fan either.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's because I'm a foot taller than him. But
yeah, no, that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it's all right. But here we are. Good friends now. He was the officiant in Jordan and I's wedding. Had a great speech.
Yeah, thank you.
Got out of the way for the kiss because everyone was pulling in different directions.
I know. I was told pre-wedding that was a must. Right? You could fumble the words, you could forget everything, whatever. Just make sure you get out of the way before the kiss. And I took the biggest slide to the left that I've ever taken in my entire life. So
the real electric slide there.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, one thing I do remember from that wedding is just absolutely, like, I'm reading the speech, whatever, and like, I'm like, okay, Matt, say this, Jordan, say this. And I remember for you, I chose like such a big sentence for you to have to repeat, and then everybody started laughing, and you're like, can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, Matt, I got you. I'll slow it down.
My memory's already not good. Like, my memory already sucks, and you're just like, here, give me the Bible.
I'm like, Matt, Just say I do, okay?
Yeah, you needed to make this as simple as possible
I
for me.
know, I know.
Jordan's a lot smarter than me already. We know that. Her memory's
She
better.
got through hers, man.
Well, she's really smart for marrying me. Watch out, boys and girls. But yeah, so Anthony and I know each other there. He's in town for a Drake concert.
Yeah.
You decided to go to that
I'm
tonight?
looking forward to it tonight. Yeah, I got my little brother in town first. This was his like Christmas gift.
All right.
Was to go to Drake tonight. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll have a blast, and then we'll get to come home to Matt Roy and Jordan Roy. So
I mean, what better can you ask?
I mean, nothing. Literally nothing.
And Dexter.
Oh my gosh, I love
Dexter
that dog.
Roy.
Dog's incredible.
Nick is the MVP of this whole trip. So
Nick is the MVP.
all right. So sports betting's legal in Arizona. So they placed a parlay, him and Nick, his brother, before they left. It hit last night.
Chef Nicholas is what we
Chef
call
Nicholas.
him. He
cooked that thing
he
up.
was cooking a parlay last night, and it was.
Sweaty.
I mean, yeah, I felt like I was in the sauna for hours in that one between the Bulls, the Trailblazers. Oh my goodness, the Blazers took us. All sorts of emotions I was feeling, but yeah, no, it was. Hats off to the chef, man. He did a phenomenal
to
job.
The chef.
It's phenomenal.
If any Texas legislators are listening to this, maybe legalize sports gambling. That'd be great. That's all we got for you today on the Sneakers Cleats podcast. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, man.
Appreciate
Pleasure,
it, dude.
as always.
Next time we'll get you a phone book or something.
There we go. A booster seat. I prefer
Booster
next time,
seat. Yeah. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy, maybe tell a friend or tell an enemy that'll turn into a friend.
There you go.
Like
there
this
you
guy.
go.
So we'll see you right back here on Monday, which me, Chuck, and Don. Till then, everyone have a good weekend.